Hello, friends, and welcome to Thursday's edition of the Kings of Anglia podcast. It always goes down smooth. The sun is shining outside. Ipswich Town won again on Tuesday night, and I'm joined by three Kings today. The boys with me today are the Dr. Stuart Watson, going clockwise on our video. Stewie, how are you?
I wasn't prepared. My mute button was on. I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. Beneath you, in no means any kind of indication in the rankings, but just technically on this video, Hutchie, the man like Hutch Hogan, Andy Warren, how are you?
2 thumbs up. I'm all right.
Excellent. 2 thumbs fresh. And the final cog in our Kings of Anglia wheel on this bus that keeps on rolling, Roscoe wearing a lovely burgundy, his colour, top.
This is my favourite hoodie of all my hoodies, or my Adidas hoodies. I made sure I was prepared. I unmuted myself before you even got to Hutchie because I knew I was going to do what Stu did. So
you got to unmute yourself, boy, ain't you? Unmute yourself.
It's going to be a very sad day for you, Ross, when the Adidas deal finally expires, isn't it? We might have to we'll keep you in our thoughts on that day.
How many hoodies do you actually own, Roscoe?
Probably 12.
That's very precise, just for a random. I'd say probably 12. Okay.
The 12 I like. There's a few others, and I'm like, I've sort of gone off them now, so they're just in the cupboard. They stay there. I may wear them one day, but maybe give them away. We'll see.
Maybe they'll come back into the rotation. We shall see. Boys, let's talk. First of all, obviously, we have to start with the win on Tuesday night, which is another good win. Keeps the playoff chase rolling. But clearly, there are more issues to talk about post-game. So let's have a quick recap of the game itself. 2-0 win. Comfortable. Big praise from Appleton after the game, saying that Town are the best side in the division by some margin, and goes on to say that they're going to play Rotherham and other teams like that who won't cause them the same amount of problems that Town did. But clearly, obviously, there's the injury thing we have to discuss at some point. But game itself, Stewie, what did you make of it?
Very good. Lincoln, a different type of team that Ipswich have played in recent weeks. Ipswich have gone up to Morecambe and to Fleetwood, played on some really heavy pitches, played against some more physical, awkward opponents. Lincoln came to Portman Road off the back of a big win against Sheffield Wednesday. We're still not in, clear of the relegation zone themselves, and they came here with a bit of confidence to try and play and take Ipswich on at their own game. And after a reasonably even start, Ipswich just went through the gears and scored 2 really good goals, really well-worked goals straight off the training pitch. It's pretty obvious that Kieran McKenna has sort of... penetration is a word he's used a lot since he's taken over. We know that the domination has been there of possession. We know that the clean sheets has been there, but adding that goal threat was the final piece of the jigsaw, and they're doing that now. Almost carbon copy goals, really, with players getting to the byline and cutting the ball back. And as soon as they went 2-0 up, I don't think I had any doubt at all that Ipswich were going to see it out. Lincoln's spirits looked crushed. Ipswich cruised to it in the end, and we'll come on to the second half in a minute, which kind of drifted away for reasons which were not good. But in terms of a win, a performance, goals, a very good night. Unfortunately, it was slightly soured somewhat in the second half.
We'll come on to the injuries in due course. It was, again, kind of a lovely thing to have that Town were 2-0 up at half-time, both from a fan's perspective and also from a journalist perspective, because it meant that I could get right on with everything that was needed to be done for print with no real kind of fear that anything would change. The game.
So you fell into that trap a bit in the first half of the season, didn't you? I remember a few times you were getting right stuck into getting the back page written, Ipswich 2-0 up, and Paul Cook's men let you down a few times on that one. You had a hasty rewrite, but you don't get that same danger with the Kieran McKenna side, do you?
I haven't got that same fear, that same peril with the McKenna side. I think 2-0 up, obviously they're not going to concede. Bing, bong, bang. Job's a good one. I was almost done by full time, which is tremendous. Hutchie, what did you make of it all?
Not got anything really to add from Stuart's review. Really, it was they dominated the game. They got the job done, and they saw out the issues that they had in the second half. The issues didn't come from Lincoln particularly. I think Christian Walton's real first piece of action came in stoppage time when he had to keep Anthony Scully out of the back post. So just dominance, but managed to turn that dominance into goals.
Give me some.
Sorry, it wasn't the same sort of when we talk about dominance. I think there was a few moments in that first half where Andy and I kept checking the possession stats, expecting it to be a lot higher than it was. I think it wasn't far off 50-50 for long periods. And that's not what your eyes were telling you when you were watching it. It felt like Ipswich were in control of the game without maybe popping the ball around for long 2, 3, 4 minute spells. But when they had the ball, it looked like they could cut through at will. And going back to that word penetration, some of the moves which led to chances, really sharp 1-2s, Burns burning past his marker time and time again, Aluko exceptional in midfield, not expectational, which I tweeted on the night, exceptional. He was silky smooth. Bursant Selina had a real sort of fire and edge about him. He looked like he was up for a scrap at any moment and was involved in both of the goals. So it wasn't the same sort of keeping the ball for ages dominance that we've seen from Ipswich, but they looked like they could cut through and score at any moment, which was the most impressive thing about it.
On the goals, which were nice. The second goal, I just want to highlight Sam Morsey, because most people in that position would have shot and scored, but he had the vision to pass to who was it? Kayden Jackson, yeah.
What a pass, yeah.
What vision? I mean, obviously we spoke a lot about what Morsey brings to the side, but that was something else entirely. Roscoe, from your privileged position pitch side, what did you make of it all?
Echo what Stu and Hutchie just said.
Excellent.
Really. Move on. No, I was very much near where Kayden Jackson scored. So when I saw Sam Morsey, I thought, here we go, 2-2. Oh no, he wanted an assist instead. Of course, Kayden Jackson then scored, and 2-2 for him. As Stu said, Sonny Aluko was unreal. He's been an interesting character because the start he had wasn't great, was it? But man of the match on Tuesday night, standing ovation. The fans, chanting, "Oh, Sonny Aluko." He's been fantastic. He's showing why he is a former Premier League player. Some of his passing, some of his movement, some of his touches. 10 clean sheets under McKenna. Unbelievable. Good night all round. Good crowd. 3 points in the bag.
Someone, of course, one of us branded Sonny Aluko the worst summer signing with our exceptional insight into football. That might have been yours truly, friends. There we go. Once again, proving how much I know. To be fair to me, no one was saying at the time, no, he should be much higher.
He did have an absolute stinker on his debut against Newport, wasn't it, in the Cup? But clearly he wasn't anywhere near fit enough at that time, which maybe led to a bit of an overreaction from some. I mean, Reading fans, I see them popping up on social media timelines, absolutely amazed that Sonny Aluko is getting the praise he is, because I've spoken to quite a few people at Reading and said he over a period he didn't really do it consistently, but he's enjoying himself at the moment. There was one turn I think people have clipped up tight on the touchline right in front of the dugouts, which was chef's kiss. That was outstanding stuff. But before, Ross, just to take you back to when you said you were there for the celebrations for the Jackson goal, can you clear up what was said between Jackson and Morsey? Were they sharing a bit of a joke about the assist, inverted commas?
My hearing isn't great, but it's not even good when there's loads of fans singing and chanting. So yeah, I don't think only Kayden Jackson and Sam Morsey will know what this was said.
You'd have done well to hear that conversation, but I've asked enough Ipswich players in post-match interviews about Sam Morsey needing to score goals, mainly because I've needed him to score goals to make some money in £1 million picks. And every single time they all smile and they all have a little joke about, yeah, it's horrendous. They all have a little joke about his finishing. Sonny Aluko did it again the other night. So he gets himself in all the right positions, but I think it might be a little bit of a running joke within the squad about their captain's ability to actually put the ball into the back of the net.
Did you have a little shake of your fist, Hutchie, when that?
He lets me down in every single game. Obviously, last week last Saturday was slightly different, but he's getting in all the positions, and that he'll score more goals for this club. I'm sure of it. But that wasn't a very good effort on goal. Fortunately, it was right to the feet of an unmarked striker and onside striker.
It wasn't an
just,
effort,
just
mate, it was
as
fast.
just as fortunately, not only did it fall at Kayden Jackson's feet, but I think it was the guy that had sort of slid in to try and block the cutback that probably was the one that played him onside. So a little bit of fortune there, but I think Ipswich earned that fortune with the way they played in that first period.
Perfect segue there, Stewie. So 2-0 win, sold it away. Very important. Get another one under the vest before this big run of games coming up. But the main talking point, unfortunately, after the game and going on for the rest of the week, has been injuries. Stewie, we did a video yesterday talking about this, and I was saying, as I'm sitting, peek behind the curtain, friends, the boys are obviously at the game on a Tuesday night. I'm sitting at Heath Towers trying to do all the print stuff that ensures we hit our fairly tight deadlines on a game night. So I'm scrolling through Twitter, Stewie's feed. Second half, I considered unfollowing you, Stew, because literally every other update was, oh no, someone else is limping now. Someone else has gone down. And I thought, this is not good. And clearly Edmondson and Morsey, headline names among them. Steve Wallace sent me a picture actually yesterday, which kind of seems to show the moment that Edmondson's hurt his ankle. Literally gone over on it, on someone else's boot. Like, everyone's done that. But apparently it's a pretty bad injury, isn't it? They're talking about being very swollen. Still not sure the extent of damage. Sure that's being assessed. But going forward, we're expecting certainly Edmondson and Morsey to miss the game on Saturday. I'm going to come to you, Hutchie, because me and Stu did a big video about this yesterday. I want to know your views. What do we make of the injury issues? And how would you, expecting that Edmondson and Morsey are out, how would you replace them?
Edmondson, I'd feel pretty confident in saying now won't play. Morsey, I don't know. I'm not sure that's that's not in the same league. I would hope as Edmondson's injury. Hearing it might just be a bit of a knock, but hopefully we'll find out more about that from Kieran McKenna on Friday. But yeah, both big players in areas where there's not really a natural replacement for either. Obviously, Cameron Burgess positionally comes into the team for Edmondson. That's pretty clear cut. There's other injuries to discuss as well, because obviously Luke Wolfenden was hobbling, so that all factors into this. I'm sure we'll talk about all of those. But Morsey, we've talked about the absence of Sam Morsey for almost the entirety of 2022, it seems, in varying different ways. Obviously, he had his ban, which kept him out for a long time, and we've had long discussions about the options that Town have got to replace him. And each time we had that chat, we came to the conclusion there is no natural replacement for the captain in the middle of midfield. And with Lee Evans out as well, if he isn't around, we're going to be back in the scenario where we're talking about probably Tyreek Backinson and Tom Carroll, which we've seen previously. I quite enjoyed watching Tyreek Backinson on Tuesday night. I thought that was his best game for Ipswich so far. But obviously that was playing alongside Morsey. Him and Carroll is a very different dynamic, and it just at the time when you're starting to feel like the real momentum is building towards a serious playoff push, that the ultra consistencies that they have in the team and has been the foundation for this form has just been rocked a little bit. So it's it's quite worrying, I would say.
If you want a silver lining on the midfield situation, and maybe I'm clutching at straws a little bit here, is Tyreek Backinson's obviously been a little bit deeper with Morsey being the one driving towards the box, but maybe this kind of frees up Tyreek Backinson to get forward a little bit more. And from what we've seen of him, he's very much capable of assists and goals. And maybe he can be that one that arrives in the box a little bit later. I think he could play that role. The bigger fear is, can someone adequately then do the slightly deeper role there? And Tom Carroll is not going to give you the same sort of grit. He's not the strongest, and stamina is probably a little question mark there as well. But if Ipswich keep the ball and pop the ball around, then, if you've got the ball, you don't need to go winning it back all the time as well. So we'll see. But there's no dressing it up. That was a deflating second half as the Ipswich Town players went down like flies.
Is it straightforward, Stewie, in the scenario that Edmondson and Morsey are missing? You just bring in Burgess for Edmondson, and you have Backinson and Carroll in midfield. Is that just the straightforward way of approaching it? Any other kind of arguments to be made around that?
I think from a minimal disruption point of view, I'd be trying to do as that, because you could start changing to a back four. I don't, Ipswich are a well-oiled machine. I'd be trying to keep things as regular as possible, really. So yeah, that they were the changes on Tuesday night, and I would anticipate that if it is just those two, that there'll be the changes on Saturday. Idris El Mazouni is obviously someone that people will talk about. I found out yesterday that I think he's got a bit of an injury himself at the moment, an Achilles issue, so that kind of takes him out of the equation as well. So yeah, I'd be surprised if it's just those two, which we hope it is, if it's not just those kind of like for like changes.
Hutchie, we've spoken before how much you like to have Selina in the team now going forward. In that scenario with Morsey out, is there any argument for dropping Selina back into midfield like we've seen, or would you prefer to have him playing further forward and happy with?
I prefer him. I prefer him in the more advanced role. I think, but that would be with Backinson in the deeper role, and Selina more advanced. Chaplin would come in then alongside Aluko, I would guess, and you'd try and push on that way. I'm not. I mean, I'd be quite happy with that. I would be quite happy with that. I think he would probably go Backinson and Carroll, but we just don't know. But I'm not against that.
I don't think Selina's game up at Fleetwood is. Some people have just gone, well, the 2 goals came when Selina got moved further forward, and obviously he's had a hand in another couple of goals at the weekend playing in that advanced role, and people then just go, well, that experiment didn't work. Don't bother with that again. I saw enough from Selina in that central midfield role at Fleetwood to think it's worth looking at again at some point, especially under these current circumstances where midfielders are short. It gets you an extra attacking player on the pitch. Andy said you could then get Chaplin in, but equally you could get Bigger or Bond or Norwood in if you wanted as well. And Selina is capable of those defence splitting 40-yard ground passes, and he wasn't far away from sort of delivering 1 or 2 of those at Fleetwood when he was in that deeper role. So it's certainly not something to be dismissed out of hand for sure.
It gives you that dynamism as well. We talk about Carroll there. It's Carroll will keep the ball for you. He'll recycle the ball. He'll move the ball around. But if you're happy with Backinson to play that deeper role, which he's obviously done to facilitate Morsey, then there's certainly elements of Selina's game that kind of mirror Morsey's game. They're not the same player, and there are differences to their games. Of course there are, but he's got some of the kind of the forward thrust attributes. And if he had arrived onto that ball into the box, I don't think it would have been. I don't think it would have been scuffed to Kayden Jackson. But I think there are ways that they can get around that. I would sincerely hope that Sam Morsey's going to be fit. But because I think he's been exceptional this year, and I'd struggle. I would struggle. Obviously, we only watch the Ipswich games and bits and pieces of other games, but I struggle to believe there's been a more consistent midfield performer in the league, maybe outside of Barlaser at Rotherham at the start of this year. So if they can kind of get over this one without it being too disruptive, that would be a massive plus, I think.
Can I throw one more option in the mix for central midfield? Sonny Aluko. You know, the way he played on Tuesday night, the way he can handle the ball and, you know, could dribble his way out of a telephone box. It's an option as well, isn't it? If we're talking about Selina being able to play there, then and we want Selina to be in those more advanced roles, what about Sonny Aluko? Just a thought.
I like that terminology, Stu. Dribble his way out of a telephone box. Is that another Watsonism? How does that work?
No, I think that's been knocking around No, that's been knocking about in football for quite some time.
Tremendous. I like it. Rossi, I'm always slightly trepidatious about asking you about anything to do with team selection because you generally just sort of shrug and go, don't care really. But that's the most likely missing parts come Saturday. Certainly Edmondson looks very unlikely to play. Morsey obviously also has to be in that red zone area with an injury. But there were many other players who finished limping/hobbling. So let's look now at the potential worst case scenario, shall we? Starting at the back. So Edmondson's out. What if Luke Wolfenden is out as well. How do you approach that?
There's no other centre halves, is there? Cameron Burgess comes in for Emerson, but then there's no other centre halves.
Well, you have to fill.
Yeah, I know. Of course, the wildcard option is Alcon Baggott. He's the one a lot of fans always talk about, because he's got their millions of followers and all that, and he's impressed. He's international for Indonesia. Do you give him a chance? But now you're chucking right into the deep end against Pompey, informed Pompey, playoff promotion team. So that's a risk. Backerson, do you drop him a bit back, maybe? It's a hard one, really. I think that's maybe one of the things you don't look forward to when you get injuries. Like, oh, have we got options there? And we've been lucky, actually. If you think under McKenna, we haven't had many injury problems. Before it used to be Ipswich Town Injury FC. But thankfully, the last months or so, we haven't really needed to have a little segment like this. We didn't need to worry about, who's going to play here, who's going to play there, because we had a set team, a set back five. So, I'm hoping Wolfie is fit. I think a lot of people are, because, it's going to be a very weird-looking back three without those two.
Without those two, then, what would you do, just to put it on record? You're what, playing Burgess in the middle, are you? Or are you bringing Baggott in?
No, I think that's too soon for him. But then some people go, when will it be ready for him? But maybe too soon for him. Why not chuck in Backerson there? I think he can probably play there.
So Backerson in the centre and Burgess on the left?
Yeah.
Okay. Hutchie, me and Stu have had a long conversation about this, but I want to know what you think. With Wolfenden out and Emerson out as well, obviously a nightmare scenario. How would you tackle that particular conundrum?
Backinson at centre half isn't for me. I'm not sure about that at all. I don't think that would suit his game. In that worst case scenario, I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking about switching up the system, but then I look at Portsmouth and see that they play a similar system to Ipswich. So I don't think they're going to want to be switching to back fours or anything like that for a game like this. Worst case scenario, I'd put Burgess in the middle. And then I would tuck Dominic Thompson in as the left-sided centre half and go with Matt Penny as the left wing back.
I agree. That's what I would do as well. I think when we did that video yesterday, the challenge was worst case scenario with all of the players that picked up Knox being out, which robbed me of Dominic Thompson as an option in that back three. And then I was really scratching around, which led me to Backinson to drop in. But as long as Thompson's okay, he's a left back playing left wing back. I think he could comfortably play that left-sided centre-back role, couldn't he?
Quite similar to Donassi.
That's my thoughts, by the way, on playing Baxton, because I didn't know about Thompson. I don't know if he's fit or not. So that's
Fair enough, Rossi. Don't have to defend yourself. Final part of this worst-case scenario, if we're assuming that Thompson is fit, even though he was hobbling at the end, the final part, which would be truly nightmarish, hell of a vision if this comes to fruition. Wes Burns also being out. Clearly a talisman. Now 11 goals. He's going to end up usurping your boy Macaulay Bonne as leading scorer before too long. Stewie, if Wes Burns is out, there's not too many options to replace him. There's one obvious one, I guess, but how would you approach that?
He'd be probably on a par with Sam Morsey in terms of being the biggest blow and no one. We talked about no one being a real natural successor to Sam Morsey and not having the same qualities. Exactly the same with Wes Burns. Kane Vincent-Young is probably the closest stylistically in terms of being dynamic, take people on, get bums off seats, get to the byline. But obviously we've seen his sort of struggles to get back to being the player of old after all those injuries. But he'd be the sort of natural successor for me.
Okay. Hutchie, we know Kieran McKenna's not afraid to make big shouts and pull surprises and rabbits out of hats. Are there any wild card options, do you think, in any of this that you could suddenly see someone appearing from nowhere and you go, wow, what's he done there? Incredible. Either playing people out of position or bringing people kind of out of the wilderness.
He's not in the wilderness. He's been injured, but if Kyle Edwards is kind of close to a return, in that worst case scenario, he could play on the right side instead of Burns. I think we've probably been through all the wild card options, if I'm completely honest. I don't. Obviously, Elkan Baggett, I'd put Albi Armin in that conversation as well as a kind of a left-sided defender, possibly for places on the bench. Because if you're without Edmondson and Burgess comes into the team and you've got concerns over Wolfenden and Thompson, you're going to want to have a centre-back option of some description on the bench. So it wouldn't shock me if one of those two appeared there potentially. But I think in terms of starting, so I think we've probably covered all bases. I also think Sam Morsey could play in the centre of defence in that central role. You'd be losing him from the team in the midfield area if he was he could play it. It wouldn't be something I'd be rushing to do. But if you didn't have Wolfenden or Edmondson and were feeling really short, I think you could go for that.
We've discussed loads of times, Andy, that Lee Evans would probably be the one of any of the midfielders you'd drop back. He's got a bit of height, he's got a bit of physicality. I think he could win his fair share of headers. He could spray the ball out from the back, but again, he's not around. Right wing back, for Burns, Donatian, I'd be talking about pushing him further forwards because his attacking game has come on leaps and bounds. But you need him in the centre of defence at the moment. So, yeah, for every solution, there's a sort of a counter thing that happens really. So this tests the squad. McKenna trimmed for a reason in January. He wanted smaller numbers to keep everybody happy, to keep everybody involved. But for the first time, we're going to see a real test of that.
Where's Toto and Ciala when you need him?
Hutchie, we obviously injury wise, we will be able to ask you'll be able to ask Kieran McKenna tomorrow, Friday is the press conference this week, about that. How would you, clearly as journalists and as fans, we want to know everything about injuries and who's fit and who's not and who's likely to miss out. Paul Cook famously didn't tell us anything, and we lamented that frequently. But putting yourself in McKenna's shoes, when you ask that question tomorrow, or someone asks that question tomorrow about injuries, I think I'd be inclined to play my cards pretty close to my chest and not really reveal anything, especially the nature of the players that could be out, big players. Is that a route you go down? You just straight bat it?
I think I'd be honest with supporters in as much as things that they've seen with their own eyes. I wouldn't try and kind of pretend they've not happened. I would because we've seen that before as well. Like if George Edmondson we saw receive a lot of treatment and then try and come back on and immediately hit the deck again and need treatment, I probably wouldn't try and kid supporters that everything was fine there. But if someone had picked up a knock in training or something, that would never ever pass my lips unless it was specifically asked of me. And I would be, let's use Sam Morsey as an example. I'd probably be a bit more vague on that. Yeah, we'll assess. There'd be a lot from my mouth. There'd be a lot of he'll be assessed in the morning. He'll be assessed prior to kickoff. I'd put a lot of doubt in opposition managers' minds in public settings like that. I think
late decision, etc. Okay, that's the injuries. That's a depressing conversation to have. Let's have an uplifting conversation now, Rossi. Kayden Jackson. We've spoken about him before on this podcast. Coming back from the dead, the Undertaker themed intro, all that sort of stuff. He's gone from kind of coming from the wilderness and having one brilliant game to now he's come from the wilderness. He's had a great game and now he's scoring consistently as well, and starting as well. What I'm about to say is something that I never thought I'd say at the start of the season. Should Kayden Jackson now be nailed on first choice starter for Town?
Yeah, because he's leading the line, scoring goals, making runs, using his pace when he needs to. I also like watching him when he's on the ball as well. He's creating chances as well. Yeah, I thought his Town career was dead and buried, like the Undertaker. The dead man then, rised again, and he's scoring the goals. I think he's probably proven a lot of Town fans wrong. I'm sure there's going to be still some Town fans saying no, don't like him, don't care what he does, but fair play to him. He's had to work really hard to get back into this team, and he's found a manager that believes in him, and he's leading that line. I'm not a big fan of him really playing up front on his own, but he's doing all right. scoring the goals. Fair play, KJ.
Stu, it's staggering. Is even a conversation. It's a reasonable conversation as well about Jackson. What do you make of his resurgence? What are you seeing in him since he's come back? And should he now be first choice?
Well, he started 5 of the last 6 games. Scored 3 goals in those matches, 2 in the last 2. Outstanding against Burton. We talked about him playing a real specific role for the team in the draw at MK Dons when he first came back in, and they're using his strengths. They're hiding his weaknesses. They're using his strengths, which McKenna does with all of the players, and he's adding other bits to his game as confidence comes. His back to goal play is impressing me at the moment. There's been times where he's backing into defenders. He's using his strength a bit more. He looks lean. He looks strong. He looks like he's clearly looked after himself in the gym and made sure he's been ready for this again. And I'm really pleased for him because, Ross said, I think a lot of people thought he was out the door. I think he thought he was out the door. I think the quote he gave to Andy was, I think I was going for the last 3 transfer windows. It's probably been more than that in reality. So it's a lesson to all footballers out there that just keep your head down and weeks, months are a long time in football and things can change quite drastically. So he's taken his chance. And yeah, I think there's no question at the moment that he has to be starting games.
Hotchie, just by way of rounding this off, what are you seeing from Kayden in terms of his play now? Is it different what you're seeing now from what you've seen before? Are they just using him better?
I think the big thing is he's got a manager that believes in him and wants to be playing with him. We talk about him not being suitable for one up front. In previous Ipswich Town teams, he was not suitable to play up front on his own because it was a team that didn't use him. There's very different ways of playing one striker up front, isn't there? You could play Ollie Hawkins up front, and what was it they said? He's like a head on a stick at times. Like that's one up front. Kayden Jackson's had to play in that team at some times when balls were just being tossed around for him to chase, and it just wasn't happening. They're using him properly. They're allowing him to get wide and attack the box, which is a big part of his game. That's what he did a lot of at Accrington when he had such success there. He's just being used properly, and he's got a manager that believes in him, who's made him feel 10 feet tall, and you can see that from him on the pitch. He's getting in the right places at the right times inside the box as well. Like Stu says, he's using the ball better in areas away from the goal as well. I think we might be seeing some signs of a player that's been well coached for 2.5 months, and well coached by a manager who wants to use that coaching to get him on the field rather than maybe just putting him through shooting drills in training.
How often did we talk about Ipswich looking a bit one-paced and predictable at times? And pace is such a valuable asset in football. You have to have that in different areas of the pitch. Wes Burns obviously provides it, but I think Jackson gives that balance of pace. He tends to do his main running down the left channel, and that just gives defences something to think about. It stretches the game. It means that, teams can't take a really high line against you, so they have to drop deeper to deal with Jackson, which then just creates so much space for your technical players like Selena and Aluko to operate in, and it's working really well at the moment.
It works in all areas of the pitch, doesn't it? Because it's like you've said, it's creating spaces for those players, but then Morsey's able to stride out of midfield, which then engages other defenders, and it's a pretty well-oiled machine, isn't it? It's working in a lot of areas of the pitch. Like Wes Burns on Tuesday night was playing noticeably higher up the pitch than we know he plays high up the pitch as a wing back anyway. But Tuesday night he was pinning the left back, who was meant to be a left wing back, but he pinned him back so much. They had to change it at half time because Burns was causing them so much trouble. And by stretching the field that way and having him pinning defenders back, that again, Donatian's got space to come up and get involved, and midfielders have got room to move out from the middle of the pitch and work. It's that they're kind of imposing their will on teams by with movement. And I guess that's where McKenna's sort of desire for his players never to stand still, never to walk, is kind of coming into it. They're just making space for each other to do their work.
Yeah, they're working out where the spaces are at certain times, and then a team then sits deep and camps on the edge of their box, and therefore there's been games where people start to double up on Burns and limit the space in behind him. Okay, then one of the centre halves can start striding out with the ball and play. We saw Wolfenden surging out from the back a couple of times on Tuesday night. So it's just, I think he's given them the freedom to work out where the gaps are in games, and whoever you are, wherever you are on the pitch, work out where the opposition are leaving the spaces and exploit it. It's great.
Requires some intelligence, doesn't it? You need intelligent football players to make that work, and it looks like Ipswich have got them.
It's all very uplifting, isn't it? We still need a nickname, official nickname for the back line as well, boys. Obviously now 10 clean sheets in 14 games. I posed Blue Wall on Monday's pod. We've had a few suggestions. So Solid Crew was one of them. I can't remember who that was actually. And also the Fridge and the Freezers, which I quite like. Obviously the freezer may well be called into action on Saturday. So we shall see. Any other suggestions, friends? Get those in. We know how much Stuart Watson loves nicknames and general Americanisms in sport. So get involved, friends. Right then, friends, let's move on from that game. Draw a line under that. And who knows what will happen on Saturday. We'll come on to Portsmouth in due course. Something else exciting. On the news side of things, our friends on the news desk are covering this story, but it's certainly worth mentioning on an Ipswich Town podcast, because Ipswich Town have put in some planning applications into Ipswich Borough Council to upgrade Portman Road. No surprise, since day one, Mark Ashton has said we need to change various things at Portman Road, but this is actual hard evidence that they're going to do it. So essentially what they've done is they've put these planning applications in, quote, to bring the ground up to the level required by Premier League clubs, with a clear aspiration of the club owners to take the club back to the top tier of English football. So essentially what they're going to do as part of this, they're going to replace the pitch with a Deso pitch, a new sand-based Deso pitch, which is obviously the top line in pitches now. I think that's kind of an integrated pitch, isn't it, boys? Put me right on that. So it's got grass, but it's also got kind of man-made natural fibres in there as well, isn't it? Which means it stands up to bad weather, etc. a lot better. Undersoil heating as well, obviously. And also, you may have seen some pictures doing the rounds. They're going to replace the dugouts, make them look properly next level, space age Premier League style dugouts with all those really comfy chairs, which looks tremendous. And install, excitingly, a big screen in the south stand over the southeast corner. And in terms of timing, it sounds like the dugouts and the big screen are going to be first this summer, and then the pitch will be replaced next summer. Obviously, that's a lot of work to do in one summer, so they have to push the pitch back a season, because obviously they can only do it in the off season, and then all the technicalities and logistics around that. Hutchie, you've spoken to Mark Ashton along with Stewie a lot. He said a lot about bringing the stadium up to standard, and how kind of run down it has been, and we need to take pride in our home. This is actual paper evidence that they're going to do it. Exciting stuff, isn't it?
Yep. It's long promised. I mean, Marcus Evans has spoke for a long time about putting a big screen in, and it never happened. But yeah, no, it's what they've said they're going to do, and they're doing it. They've worked through these projects kind of one or two at a time, and getting them done. I think there's some electronic advertising boards going in as part of that as well, which could all that, along with a big screen, can both kind of enhance a match day experience for everyone going to the games, and also enhance revenue for the club, which obviously is important as well. The dugouts at Portman Road are really tiny, tight areas, so they're going to look like they're sitting in kind of gaming chairs during in going into games. A lot of grounds have those, don't they, Stu? And we always get told off for trying to sit in them. They put covers on these seats. Other football clubs very, very protective over these seats. Yeah. If you're not a professional athlete and you try and sit in one of these seats, I think there's a fear that you might cause some real damage. Too heavy? Am I too heavy for the gaming chairs? I don't know, but they are quite comfortable, and they look great. great as well. That area of that just needed a bit of love. It's a very tired part of the
they're
part of
like
the ground.
they're just standard sort of plastic seats that fans sit on that have got sort of bits chipped away from them, general wear and tear. That badly needed modernising, didn't it? So it's exciting, isn't it?
It's a whole thing, isn't it, about your surroundings, your work surroundings, kind of influencing the way you approach your job and almost how you perform. So bringing everything up to standard, particularly to Premier League level, that in itself then raises expectations, doesn't it? Which is tremendous.
I don't know what that says about us sitting in our spare bedrooms doing this, but
well, I was going to say there's no mention in that planning application, boys, of any kind of improvements to the press facilities. I assume they're going to give you thrones up there, befitting our King's title. Any? I assume
they've already made some. There's already some new lights up there.
Oh, lovely.
Which there's these kind of little lamps that are kind of on the desk that I want to rip out with my bare hands at times and just bend them over. They don't work, half of them, so they have put some new lights up there, which is quite good of an evening. But maybe that's a project for further down the line. I quite like I quite like the press area at Ipswich. It does what it needs to do.
I think they will have to upgrade it, though, won't they? If Town do end up in the Premier League, I think there are certain stipulations in terms of press
conversations. The year Ipswich were finished 6th in the playoffs, and they were obviously riding high in the second half of that season. I know they were frantically having conversations about boxes that needed to be ticked if they were to get to the Premier League, and the press room was just one of many things that would have needed to be broadened out and improved. So listen, the two words Premier League still feels like a long way off at the moment, but it's nice that the club have got such lofty ambitions.
100%. And Roscoe, you're the man, obviously, with the fans. I'd imagine there's quite a lot of excitement about this. I know that there are pictures being shared around of the various kind of mock-ups of how the new bits might look. Good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know, it's just little touches, but the scoreboard is what a lot of, well, not scoreboard, the big screen is what a lot of fans have been wanting for a very long time. Every time they go to, even like, I think Fleetwood have got one, like even Morecambe have got like a screen. Like those sort of clubs, I know they're more modern sort of stadiums now, but those, even just small clubs have got big screens, and Ipswich Town don't have one. I know it's just a little touch, but no, I think it's exciting and just something new for people to look at when they go to Portman Road. Definitely the dugouts. I think that's a nice little touch.
I think we might have the only seats in the ground potentially, Stu, where you might not be able to actually see that big screen where it's going. It's going between the south stand and the Cobbold stand over in that corner that looks kind of like it looks like it's kind of derelict at time. There's no seats over there. It's just a corner, but they have to put it at a certain height to allow sort of vehicles to get in underneath it, because if they're still going to intend to have concerts inside Portman Road, and even to get the pitch done next summer, you're going to have to get something like heavy machinery onto the pitch, so it's going to have to go underneath that screen. So if you sit right at the back of the west stand like we do, you might not be able to see it under the roof, but
it's not for us, is it? I mean, I remember going to football as a kid, and it sounds really silly, but like looking up at big screens in awe, and that was like a big part of the excitement of going to football and seeing a big screen and stuff like that. It just does give a different vibe to match day. So I'm looking forward to that getting installed.
Villa Parks was the first one I can really remember seeing it at Villa Park, which I'm sure they'll have changed it now. It's the chunkiest thing ever. It's absolutely massive, like chunky, blocky thing, which just constantly playing highlights over and over on it. I'd imagine they'll probably upgrade some of the sound system inside Portman Road as well, if they're really going to make the most of playing some good stuff out on the video screens, which I'm sure as well. Further down the track, there'll be some plans from the club to kind of.
I think that will come. They've said that will have to be when the pitch gets renovated, because that's when you can get the window to get all the cherry pickers in and get up high into the. But they're well aware. They could do that
this summer, I reckon, because you work the pitch anyway in the summer, don't you? You're not just. They'll probably I imagine they'll probably still dig up and lay a new pitch, as they do most most summers. I reckon they can sort some new speakers, mate.
I say in all this, if we're doing it, if we're going big, let's go big properly or go home. Let's have the biggest screen that we can get. Let's do SoFi Stadium size screen, Hutchie. Let's get that massive circular enveloping 3D, 4K, whatever it is. Whack one of them in there. Boys, let's play a little fantasy upgrade to the stadium. Hutchie, you've got something to say?
I think we should ask the club if we can play the podcast out on the big screen before.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, that could only increase attendance at games, I'd imagine.
Give us a segment.
But boys, going back again, Stewie, indulge me here to American sport, particularly baseball. The stadiums are known for having these little kind of special, unique wrinkles built into them. Some places have, for example, swimming pools in the corner of the stadium, or a pirate ship that you can watch the game from, or a little restaurant, that's literally just you and you can sit there. What would you add to Portman Road as a unique wrinkle, if you could? I'm going first. I'm thinking little corner of the stadium, an actual working farm.
Okay, it exists there.
with a little mini tractor, little small holding, some goats, some sheep, lovely. Something for the kids as well. That'd be go to Portman Road, watch the football, and then go and pet a goat, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think, is it LA Angels, the baseball team? I went there. Have they got Andy? They've got like the waterfall thing. I went and watched the game there many years ago. Yeah. Andy and I, going off on a slight tangent, we were discussing that we could do to fill. As you can imagine, there's many hours travelled together, and the conversation can get a bit weird at times in the car. But I don't know how we got onto this, but we talked about how long it would take to get to Fleetwood via tractor, and then explored whether we could then do that as some sort of charity thing. Andy said maybe we could ride a Suffolk Punch to a game at some stage. So tractors and Suffolk Punches have got to be involved in this idea of yours. Maybe like a giant robotic Suffolk Punch that kind of rears on its back legs when a goal goes in. Some fireworks go off as well.
Shoots lasers out of its eyes when Town score. Yeah. Amazing. I like that. So it rears up, lasers, all that sort of business. Just up your street, that, Stewie. Hutchie, what are you adding to Portman Road in your own little unique...
I would completely redesign the tunnel area of Portman Road into the shape of a tractor. So it's absolutely massive tractor, because there's a security box there as well where they've got kind of like the match day announcers up there during the game, so they could sit in kind of
that's like the cab of the tractor,
and
but then the players run out
through
of the
wheels.
Run out of kind of the engine grill out the front, and then you've got capacity for like fireworks coming out of the tractor and smoke and stuff.
What about, when sometimes they bring the ball onto the pitch via like a little remote control car? Can we get some sort of farming tractor themed version of that? Maybe a small child could sort of drive it on.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that one at the rugby recently.
Yeah. But the girl who was driving didn't want to stop, did she? She just kind of turned it into a game and was like eluding the players and all that kind of stuff. They're chasing after, trying to get the ball. I liked it.
And the beauty of it is we're getting this new beautiful Deso pitch. So having tractors driving on it is going to be absolutely no problem whatsoever, is it? It'd be fine.
Ross, how about yourself? You can't just have a massive Ross special throne seat for you, although that would definitely be a feature for people to see. Ross slightly elevated above everyone, wearing a little crown. What would you do, though, if you could add anything to Portman Road?
Now, the only one good thing about Stadium MK is they have a Papa John's in the stadium. So I think it'd be nice to have like a proper, because food at Portman Road is pretty rubbish, to be honest. And food, always comes back to me talking about food at football. So maybe a restaurant, like a Nando's, built in the stadium.
Where would you put it? Where are you putting it? In view of you'd need to be able to watch the game from there as well, wouldn't you?
Get rid of the cobble stand or something. Get rid of a section of the cobble stand.
A whole stand.
Whole stand restaurant. Sorry, Matt, AK View from U2 down there. Maybe just a section. Or so it's somewhere we can put it.
Why don't you build in a little thing behind the goal where you can literally sit entombed and eat your Nando's just behind the goal? Room for a family. Make it the Nando's section. I do like, though, that we've gone working farm. We've gone giant mechanized Suffolk Punch firing lasers. Hutchie's gone giant tractor for the place to come out, and Ross has gone Nando's.
Do you know what else I think would be good? Do you remember when years and years ago, David Blaine just sat in that clear-
box?
that
that
box
worked out well
over-
for him, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it went really well. But I thought, could you construct some kind of like sky boxes where those boxes are just above the ground, or like so above the stadium, sort of hanging at a very high level between the stands.
And then you watch from there.
You watch from there, like a bird.
Bird's eye view, literally.
Yeah.
You'd have to
Was
have
that
some-
good, or was that a terrible idea?
Well,
I think
I'm sure a lot of people would be up for that. I'm not sure I would be because I'm terrified of heights. But
I don't know if
why
that's
not?
a good view of a football match, though. Now I think about it a bit more.
What
Rubbish idea.
What if
Move on.
nature calls
Just
midway
open-
through the
just
game?
go-
You're in
just
trouble.
go.
Just open the back door.
There's
and
a
walk the
hatch.
pitch. Yeah. Yes, you have to pay £5,000 to sit there, but if you need a wee, you have to just go out the back door, as it were.
Okay.
Right then, friends, let us know what you would do to Portman Road in terms of your own little wrinkles you would add. Before we move on to Portsmouth, Stewie, I want to do another aside because there are many things. I've missed a couple of shows recently with being off. I got to speak to Hutchie about Milan on Monday, which was great. But you, my friend, since we last had a chance to speak about this, have been at a red carpet London premiere, walking with the stars for a very, very popular TV show. Do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because I think the fans, the people, your public would like to know about it.
Yeah, you've probably overhyped that slightly, but I did go to a world premiere in London. I didn't walk with the stars. Didn't go on the actual red carpet. I went on sort of a fake bit of red carpet where you can kind of replicate the images, but I was very much with Joe Public. Managed to get some tickets for people may or may not be aware of a program called Outlander, which was it's got a bit of a cult following globally, very big in America. It's on Amazon Prime. It's now moved to another channel. Series 6 of that. It was 98% women in attendance. The male lead spends a lot of his time with his top off, and I was there
Sexist.
with my wife while they screamed at him as he walked down the red carpet. But the best part of it was they had the London Philharmonic Orchestra there that played the theme tune and then played live during the showing of the program. So for me, that was really cool. But yeah, it was good fun.
Where was it? It was a great venue, wasn't it? Was it Royal Festival Hall or
Royal Festival Hall? Yeah, just near the London Eye by Waterloo.
Fantastic. So all in all, not many people get to go to something like that. So it's something you enjoyed, I'd imagine.
No, I was. I got the tickets on Valentine's Day, and to use a football analogy, I was 1-0 down heading into stoppage time on Valentine's Day. I hadn't put in a great deal of effort, if I'm honest, Mark, and my good wife had let me know her disappointment, and these tickets were sort of first come, first served, and I was very, very lucky to get them. I was quick on the draw, so that was equivalent of scoring a couple of very late goals. That was the 99
That's
Champions
the
League final. That was.
That's the Aguero winning the Premier League for Man City, isn't it?
Mhm.
Moment. That is extraordinary work, my friend. I've been married, 12, 13 years. We don't bother with Valentine's Day. I'm past that now. Very much into the next stage of relationship, but very impressive stuff. Hutchie, what do you do for Valentine's Day? Just out of interest. I bet you're like me, aren't you?
What do you reckon?
Nothing.
Yeah. nothing.
Correct. Roscoe, obviously, you buy a 19-foot teddy and 14,000 flowers. I'd imagine you're still very much in that stage.
Luckily, our anniversary sort of in decline, so it's sort of like, yeah, we'll just do everything on that one
Together.
day.
A massive.
Does that mean at some point you made your move like on Valentine's Day then? The ultimate Valentine's Day?
Not yet.
No, not that move.
No, but you must
The
have-
initial-
If
the
your
initial one.
anniversary is around there, Ross, you must have made the initial "Will you be my girlfriend" sort of move around Valentine's Day.
11th
kiss
of
her?
Feb. 11th of Feb.
Yeah.
Can't kiss and tell, gentlemen never tells. But yeah, it happened near there, and then
Cupid's arrow
Yeah.
struck.
Yeah.
Boom. And you've not. How many days is it now? You've gone without proposing?
It's probably now been 2-3 years. So,
Wow. Because when we started this podcast, you were proposing pretty much every other day. It was mental.
Yeah. I was
We
in
were
love.
like,
I was in
you were
love.
you were going away for a weekend. We're like, Ross, try not to propose this weekend. Anyway,
Yeah.
from romance and world premieres to the romance of a big game at Portman Road this weekend, friends. Pompey, informed Portsmouth are the visitors. They've got their own issues actually going into this game. They're short of players as well, but they're very much in form. A game that Town really can't afford to lose, being as Portsmouth are behind them, but with games in hand. Stewie, set us up for this one. This is, for me, if this was a TV event, you'd have the Rocky montage playing before this. You'd have Town on the ropes from the start of the season, being knocked around left, right, and centre. Then they get a new coach. He comes in. Suddenly, Town are just knocking folks left, right, and centre themselves, KOing people out of rings. And then at the end of March come these three massive end-of-level bosses. We're talking, what's his name from Rocky IV? I must break you.
Ivan Drago.
Ivan Drago and his pals. They're all coming in now. So how are you feeling about this one? This is going to be a massive game, isn't it? We say everything's massive. This is huge, mental. It's monumental.
Are Portsmouth the Russians? Is that what we're saying here?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm going there. No.
Okay.
Yeah, let's maybe leave that out of it.
Yeah. They're 2 points behind, but with 2 games in hand. Portsmouth, this is crunch time now for Ipswich, isn't it? Massive. Oxford away and then Plymouth at home to follow. This is, I think, by the end of this month we'll know whether it's on or whether it's off for Ipswich Town. And I know we've talked a lot about Ipswich having injuries and the test of the squad. Portsmouth have got something like 13 or 14 senior outfield players available at the moment. They've got injuries. They've got suspensions as well. Yes, they're in really good form. 6 wins from their last 7, but they've had a lot of games at home during that period. And they too have got a ridiculous run of fixtures now that's going to make or break them. After Ipswich away this weekend, they go to Plymouth on Tuesday night. Then they've got Wickham, Bolton, Rotherham as their 3 games after that. So they'll be in the exact same mindset of Ipswich at the moment. It's kind of now or never. So massive game at Portman Road. And for all the doom and gloom of the injuries that we've spoken about, there's still so much to be positive about with the way McKenna's setting this side up. He has got options to replace people. I do trust him to find a formula to come up with this game. And home form has been so strong for Ipswich. So I still think we can go into this with a great deal of optimism.
Hutchie, this is the game you break out the Monsters Inc. trainers, isn't it? If ever there's going to be a game or a stretch that we need some extra support, literally for your feet. This is the one, isn't it?
I mean, I don't want to get back into trainer territory, but they have been on my feet for the last 2. So it's up to you.
That's a good sign.
I'll see what I wear. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's a real tester of where they're at. She's just mentioned their form that Portsmouth are in. They're averaging 3 goals a game over those 7 in terms of goals scored as well, which is coming up against a defence that doesn't concede. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, it's going to have maybe some different personnel in it, but it'll be interesting to see how those 2 things kind of collide with each other. And there are some options in there for Portsmouth in attack, like Tyler Walker, Ronan Curtis, George Hurst, O'Brien's in there. Michael Jacobs sounds like he's coming back. Harness is played anywhere from number 10 to right wing back for them during that side.
I think he might be suspended, Harness. I don't know if he's served
that. Well, that's good if he is.
He's out, but the rest of them that you've mentioned is that's quite an attacking array of options, isn't it? I think George Hurst has got 5 in 3, scored a brace in his last 2 games. Walker, we know from playing for Lincoln before, don't we? So, and Curtis has always done well against Ipswich from memory. So, yeah.
Jacobs is an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously there's the whole narrative with Jacobs and pretty much being a Town player and then being sent back to Pompey so they could sign Carl Edwards. He's gone from being very much on the fringes at Pompey to being pretty much a fan favourite talisman this season. I think, like you say, he's been injured recently, hasn't he? And I
Yeah.
saw Cowley saying this morning that he may be back on the grass Friday. So potentially this game comes a little bit too early. But that's a fascinating story.
Yeah, Joe Morel as well, obviously,
Yeah.
who Ipswich
Yeah.
very publicly courted and tried to sort of snatch from under Portsmouth's nose at the last minute. So subplots galore. We love the subplots.
Narrative. Rossi, how are the fans feeling? I bet your WhatsApp group is on fire, on fuego, isn't it? With chat about Pompey as well as the new seats at Portman Road.
It's all about the seats this morning. Pompey is very much. We'll get to that on the weekend. But no, yeah, Pompey are one of the big boys of League One, of course. Of course, we've got that brilliant win against them at Fratton Park early in the season. Of course, Paul Cook's maybe one of very few games he did all right for us. But Pompey, yeah, as Stu said, they've got George Hurst. I've just looked, 5 goals in his last 5 games. 3 games, sorry. So he's on fire at the moment. And Pompey, they like to score goals in the last few games. 3-1 win, 4-0 win, 3-2 win, 3-3 against Fleetwood. So, if we have got those problems at the back, possibly a clean sheet's maybe gone. I'm sorry to say that. But no, it should be a very entertaining game, hopefully.
They've not played the blue wall yet, mate. Don't you worry. Hutchie, £1 million picks before we get on to predictions. Where do we go? Where do we stand on Monday? Obviously, Morsey let you down badly. How are we doing and what are you doing on Saturday?
I lost all of them. However, I feel like I won the bets in spirit. If it was a bookmaker, I'd get my money back on the Joe Pigott one because he didn't get on the pitch. I don't think I'm operating with a real bookmaker here, so I can't really take that. Can't really take that back. So I did lose quite 250k on. But did Bolton let me down in the £1 million accumulator actually? If they drew, if they'd won it, I'd have won £1 million. So yeah, all gone down the drain.
Fine
Buts and maybes. Did we honour the non-placed Sam Morsey goal bet? By the way, I
officially ruled that was a good bet because I made the analogy that it's like playing the lottery every Saturday. You don't have to tell everyone you're doing it.
Okay,
I'd made it very clear it was going on every game.
Yeah. And I saw a couple of comments as well from the KOA Army saying absolutely with Andy on that one. So Hutchie, I think you're now back to. Is it now back just to the cool million?
Yeah,
which is still pretty decent. I mean,
back to where I started. I'm going big this weekend, though.
Yes,
I'm putting quite a lot of money. I'm going to spend $500,000 of that this weekend.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, I'm going to go Morsey to score again,
right?
Because I'll kick myself if I don't. So that's 50k on that.
What if he doesn't play though? You just null and voiding that.
Null and void it, I think.
Yeah.
For 50, and then £450,000 on both teams to score in this game would return is even money. Would return 900 grand.
Wow! So any end score in which both teams have scored, you're in the money.
Yep.
And especially if Morsey scored. Fair enough. Hutchie, give us a prediction then. Obviously, both sides are going to score.
0-0.
Covered all bases. Maybe slightly against my better judgment, I'm going to say Ipswich Town 2, Portsmouth 1.
Right. When you had your very sensible and measured debate about the run-in, was this a game that you had as a win, Hutchie?
No, I've got it down as a draw on my little list in front of me. I've got that and Oxford both as draws.
Draws. Okay.
And you had Fleetwood down as a draw as well, didn't you?
Yeah, they're 2 points up on where they needed to be to reach 7. This is to reach 75 points, which I think they'll need more than that. But they're 2 points up on where I had them at the moment. So long may that continue.
Hutchie optimistically saying 2-1 then. Stewie, what are you saying?
I've just had to Google what I did the sort of predictions for make or break March, and I feel like I should try and be consistent with this. I feel quite optimistic going into this, actually, even with the injuries. But I'll stick with what I originally predicted on these various things, which is a draw. I've got it down as 1-1.
1-1. 2-1, 1-1. Roscoe, you've got the deciding vote. What are you saying?
I want to go for a lot of goals. Why not? Town to win. 3-2. Loads of goals.
In a
Enjoy.
thriller.
Yeah.
Thriller. I'm saying 6-4 Town, I reckon. I've actually seen
6-4.
I've actually seen a 6-4 in person, boys. It was amazing back in the day. Derby Chelsea, 1989, 91, 90, something like that. Derby 3-1 3-1
I've
down
seen
at
a
half
6-4
time.
too.
Yeah, lots of goals.
Crew.
What game was that?
Crew at home, yeah, in 2000, must have been 2004. Packed with long range goals and own goals, just packed in.
Tremendous. Let's hope for
I
similar
haven't
entertainment.
seen a 6-4.
Okay, you're the odd one out. Let's hope for similar entertainment this weekend then, friends. Anything else to mention, boys, before we take our leave and get on with the day?
No.
I think Mike Bacon, in his column, has dubbed this League One's Super Saturday. There's some other results to look out for elsewhere. Bolton at home to Plymouth, MK versus Wigan, which doesn't really affect Ipswich if we're talking about maybe some of those teams higher up being further away. Sheffield Wednesday at home to Cambridge, Oxford are away to Shrewsbury, Sunderland v Crewe, and Wycombe v Rotherham. So some other results to look out for. I mentioned sort of Portsmouth results coming up. These next few weeks are big. I think for me it's looking like seven teams into 3 now. Ipswich being part of that, from Oxford down to Portsmouth. Really looking forward to this. It's just great that Ipswich have got that we're able to have this conversation, because this season could very, very easily have drifted away long before now, but it hasn't. They might finish short, but we'll see. They've got a chance.
But they might also win the playoffs and get promoted, Stu, and that's the line. We're in it. Something else we're in, Roscoe, just by way of a final mention this week for town-related stuff. The Tractor Girls still in the FA Cup, and they're going to be live on the BBC, which is tremendous, on the red button, a week on Sunday, isn't it? At home to West Ham. You did a Tractor Girls Talks out there now on the KOA channel if you want to listen to that. But what great news, and what a boost for the girls to be playing on national TV.
On the Beeb, as people say, on the Beeb. Yes, anybody's sort of dreaming it to play football on the telly. BBC down at the Gold Star. Don't know if they're going to have enough room for the cameras, because it's a very small ground. But I'm sure a lot of their families and themselves will save that footage. Seeing the lineup graphics, seeing the little name bars coming down, talking about different players. Be really intrigued to see what hosts are going to come down to, host it and stuff. So, but exciting times for the players, and I'm sure they're looking forward to even more now because it's on telly.
Did Town get any little financial boost from that? Just out of interest.
Probably.
Yeah, so that'll come in very useful as well, won't it? Fantastic.
Yes.
So that's something to look forward to as well. Next week, a week on Sunday, Ipswich Town v West Ham live on the BBC red button in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup for the women. This weekend, of course, it's Pompey at home for the men. Just before we go, I have to do the usual shambolic outro. Remind you to support our sponsor, Manscaped. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery on all that excellent stuff they've got there. Support us across all our social medias. That's Kings of Anglia on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And also leave us a 5-star review on the iTunes charts, because that helps us greatly in terms of visibility and people picking us up and coming along for the ride as Town head inexorably towards winning the playoffs at Wembley and going up into the Championship next season. That's what's going to happen, and we're going to take you with us. If you're going to the game this weekend, enjoy it, friends. If you're not, follow it with us. All the boys will be there, and we'll be back on Monday to break it all down. Have a great weekend, and we'll speak to you then.